Welcome to SVG TV News for Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022. I am Rochelle Baptiste with the details. A call has been made by an organization representing women and girls to incorporate International Men's Day activities in the gender-based violence campaigns for the 16 days of activism to be increased to 22.
Chairperson of the Commonwealth Women's Network, CWN, Nelsia Robinson, strongly believes that there should be 22 days of activism against gender-based violence. Robinson says the campaign should start on International Men's Day, which is observed on November 19th. Speaking at a conference of women yesterday, the chairperson says issues affecting men need to be integrated into gender-based programs if one is to address violence against women.
But when you look at the issue of violence, the human rights and so on, it is not just a woman's issue. And the fact that there is an International Men's Day, it makes sense to me that it is from that day that you begin to focus attention, because what is happening, as we said, gender-based violence, it involves men and women.
Participants who came from different parts of St. Vincent and the Grenadines were briefed on the history of some women activists in SVG who had a drive to make a difference in society. An advocate for women, Winfield Tannis Abbott, told the women that they must understand their purpose and the important role they play in society.
It is about you as an individual. What is your value? What is your worth? What impact can you as a woman make? And not only as a woman, as a single mother with 2, 3, 4 children, doing 5 different jobs, but yet your children are coming out with their doctorate degree, being a lawyer and so forth. You need to take pride in who you are, take pride in what you have achieved and what you have done for your children and your community at large.
One participant says she now feels empowered as a woman.
I find it is an interesting program and wish it could happen every 2-3 months, instead for a week or so, to empower people on their little rights, because these little things where we learn today, women have a lot of rights and we don't know them, and we need to speak out about these things, but sometimes we're not heard anyway either. We're not heard. So we need a voice some way. So we start in here and hope it go a long way.
The 60 days of activism against gender-based violence kicks off on the 25th of November on International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. This runs until the 10th of December on Human Rights Day. The theme for the Commonwealth Women's Network Conference was On Our Mother's Shoulder, Continuing the Legacy. Larissa Pugsley-Kidd, SVG TV News.
And the Administration of Small Estates Amendment Bill 2022 was passed in Parliament on Monday evening. In tabling the bill, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves says it will be of tremendous benefit to the people with small estates.
So what we are doing here is to have the same expedited process, but to remove $240 and substitute $50,000, so that small beneficiaries, either under an intestacy, that is without a will, or under probate with a will, you can have this expedited process. Madam Speaker, if you're doing it and you're putting it at $50,000, you have to put a provision to make sure that those who are helping the client doesn't say that an estate which is $150,000, they put it as though it's under 50. So there is an offense. So you put a section after section 5 and you say, a person who for the purpose of deriving the benefit conferred by this act knowingly makes to the registrar a statement which is false in any material particular, commits an offense, and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $2,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months. In other words, You don't go and make a false declaration.
Prime Minister Gonzalez says they have also put a transitional provision as part of the amendments to facilitate a smoother process in the way things were previously done.
It reads, on the commencement of this section, an application for the grant of probate or letters of administration that is pending or is in progress under any other law may be continued and determined under this Act if the application is one to which the provisions either relating to administration of estate or probate applies in respect of a small estate. So that if you have at the moment an estate before the court of more than $240 but under $50,000, you can say, well, this Act gives a transitional provision. You can say, Madam Registrar, I'm making an application, so that we can get a lot of these small estates out of the way.
The Prime Minister noted that under the current law, there is a fee of $2.40 for small estates, and with the amendment, if the estate is under $3,000, there will be no fee, and if the estate is $3,000 but not exceeding $25,000, a person will only pay $25.
So this is a very practical piece of legislation to help persons with small estates. Madam Speaker, there are some people with small estates. The amount of money it costs, and sometimes what happens is this: with small estates where you have to clear, sometimes there's a piece of land which is worth $20,000, but the way the person has come by the land through inheritances, and to clear all the prior persons to her, there's death certificate you have to get from Alaska, from Timbuktu, from High Wycombe, from Atlanta, from Maracaibo. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Of course, what we have also done, Madam Speaker, if you have been in undisturbed possession for it for a period in excess of 12 years, and you have what you may call adverse possession, we have the Possessory Titles Act, which we had passed. But for a small estate, you get an opportunity here. You display your affidavit, you outline everything, everybody is satisfied, first of all the registrar, then the judge, and the issue.
In his contribution to the debate on the bill, Opposition Senator Israel Bruce said he is always prepared to support legislations as a member of the House when he is satisfied that the benefits to be derived will be passed on to the poor and ordinary people. He said the boundaries of the existing legislation create some difficulty for beneficiaries of small estates of deceased persons, and he is happy that the amendments will address some of the concerns he has seen in his practice as a lawyer.
I've seen situations where there's an account, maybe at a credit union or a bank, that has a few $1,000s in it. But because the amount is outside of or ring-fenced by the legislation that as is, then you're requiring those persons to go through the regular processes. And the cost on them to get it done, it didn't make sense for them to go through it when you look at what they were going to be getting as a benefit from the estate of the deceased. And I am satisfied in my mind, Madam Speaker, that this piece of amendment would assist a number of persons for whom the benefit is so small and the headache had been so tremendous. I think what this does is that it allows the small benefits to go to the people who are entitled to have it, and it reduces the unnecessary difficulties and headaches that they had hitherto in the past.
As we enter the Christmas season 2022, the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, particularly the Public Health Department, is encouraging the general public to work together with the department to prevent, detect, and manage food-borne diseases and risks so as to maintain and improve our health. In a PSA issued today, the ministry said for this season, the theme Safer Food, Better Health will be adopted and persons are asked to practice food habits that are in harmony with this theme. The PSA further stated that considering that there are multiple stakeholders who are usually engaged in food services at this time, the Public Health Department is asking that these 5 key food safety measures be observed and practiced. These include the use of safe water and raw materials, cooking food thoroughly, keeping the surroundings and food contact surfaces clean, separating raw food from cooked food, and keeping food at safe temperatures. A further appeal has also been extended to food businesses inclusive of butchering and slaughtering service providers to comply with the department's food safety guidelines and engage employees, suppliers, and other stakeholders to develop and practice a culture of food safety and hygiene. The ministry said in an effort to support this food safety and hygienic initiative, the Public Health Department will be deploying inspectors throughout SVG to provide meat and other food inspection services, and the usual support and cooperation of the public are required for safer food and better health. In some police news now, we hear that the RSVG police force has issued a wanted person bulletin for Nicklin Trouble King in connection with a series of offenses, including burglary, robbery, and escape lawful custody. The bulletin says the suspect is considered to be armed and dangerous and to be approached with caution. If seen, you are asked to contact the Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of crime at telephone number 4571211 extension 4816 or the officer in charge of the Eastern Division at 4586229 or 4571211 extension 4937 or 4938 or any police station or police officer you are comfortable with. The police say all information received will be confidential. Meanwhile, Glenroy Primus, a 60-year-old farmer of Mount Pleasant, Mesopotamia, has been charged with the November 16, 2022 murder of Hilton Thomas, a 66-year-old farmer of the same address. Primus is accused of causing the death of the deceased by chopping him about his body with a cutlass. The accused was remanded into custody at Her Majesty's Prison after he appeared at the Serious Offences Court today, Wednesday, November 23rd, for arraignment. Here that the first of what the organizers say will be several protest actions was staged on Tuesday with concerned North Leeward residents marching with placards in the area expressing their objection to the Richmond Quarry project. Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday was among the small group of protesters who marched through the streets and up to the quarry site, where he spoke to the quarry workers, reportedly expressing his dissatisfaction with the method being used in the project, including the absence of an environmental and social impact assessment and lack of meaningful consultation with the affected farmers in the area. The organizers say they have already begun discussions for the second protest march. The distribution process of urea fertilizer to farmers island-wide is ongoing. The Ministry of Agriculture, through its technical officers, is leading the distribution process for the 40,000 sacks of urea received recently from Venezuela. At a ceremony at the Lacqua Food Terminal Market, Chief Agriculture Officer Renato Gums thanked the government of Venezuela for the donation, noting that it will go a long way in enhancing production and productivity in agriculture in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Now, urea is something farmers here have been using all the time. It's usually imported by the import warehouse, but what we'll see, we have never seen this amount of urea at any one time, and that's the fact. And I would always issue, the award of caution that, people will say, why so much urea, you could have a negative effect. But anything used in excess will have a negative effect. You drink too much water, it has a negative effect on you. So we just have to know how we're going to use the urea and over what time period we're going to use this urea. But I want to also take the opportunity to try to enhance the working relationship between the farmers and the extension service. And I think this will be a good pathway of enhancing that relationship. Now, the issue of productivity in St. Vincent and the Grenadines has always been a challenge. And in order to be competitive, you have to be efficient producers. And you know, people say, oh, we are losing market access, we are losing, whatever they want to say. But you have to be competitive because consumers are trying to stretch their money. And this fertilizer, I think we can use it in a way that it can enhance productivity. Here we normally do a startup, but it requires additional nutrients from other fertilizers. So if you try to use it by itself throughout an entire crop, you will not get the result you're looking for. So I'm urging you to work closely with the extension service and let us work together to enhance production and productivity in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
And as well as Ambassador to SVG, His Excellency Francisco Perez said the delivery of the urea to farmers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines was a dream of the now deceased President Hugo Chavez.
Chavez have this dream to help the farmer and the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the dream of Chavez have to do also with the unity of our people, the people of Venezuela and the people of St. Vincent. So I am sure, I am happy because Chavez did this. Thanks to Chavez, we are here now receiving 2 million kilograms of urea, 2 million kilograms, 40,000 sacks. It's more than 20 tons, no? Or 20 tons, all right. So that is something that feel me, I feel proud of that. Also, it's a compromise of our President Maduro. President Maduro meet with the Prime Minister Raul Gonzalez 3 months ago, and he got that compromise in that meeting, and here is the result of that.
Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar said the urea will be stored in facilities across the country to be closer to farmers for distribution.
And transportation is not cheap. In fact, I got a draft of the bill yesterday, and it is already at the sum of $600,000 to offload the urea, and payment to offload it. And you and I know to lift up 5 sacks of urea in one day is hard. And you have men working different shifts to offload a boat of 40,000 sacks. The reason the notice was so short for you to come here, we estimated that 14,000 sacks of urea, that we could hold 14,000 sacks here. But I was advised that we have about 9,000 sacks here. And with all the urea on the boat to come here to, we have to move this urea out, place it into your hands. And I know that you are ready for the urea because we have been preparing you for several weeks now. We handed out the do's and the don'ts.
Minister Caesar said there is enough urea on island to work 10,000 new acres of lands and encourage farmers to get more lands under cultivation.
After taking the urea home, the next thing you have to do, you have to start to scout around. And I use the word scout. You have to start to scout around in your village and you have to go to Miss Johnny and say, Miss Johnny, you have a 5-acre block of land here that you ain't working. I want to do a lease of this land, because I hear that they have only offloaded half of the urea for the boat, and with more urea to come, I want to not only double but triple my production. I want the young men who are here, don't settle for the 2 sacks you're getting today. I don't want you to think that it's 2 sacks alone. We are moving everybody out to 2 sacks today, because the extension officers advised me that they want to be there with you to make sure that the application is done properly. Every two-man bagay, as we say, will be leaving the office, putting on our water boots, and we'll be coming out in the fields with you, because we love you. And the farmers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you hold the backbone of this country together, and we have to express our love by your partnership.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines and 81 other states formally endorsed the political declaration on strengthening the protection of civilians from the humanitarian consequences arising from the use of explosive weapons in populated areas, the EWIPA. States include representatives from international organizations, civic society, and survivors from war-affected countries gathered at Dublin Castle in Ireland on November 17 to the 18th, 2022 for this high-level conference to adopt the declaration after it being finalized at the consultations held in Geneva, Switzerland on June 17, 2022. The declaration marks a culmination of almost 3 years of consultations led by Ireland involving member states, the United Nations, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and civil society organizations, including the International Network on Explosive Weapons. The declaration's focus is to address the devastating and long-lasting humanitarian impact of the use of explosive weapons in populated areas. SVG's delegation to the conference included non-resident ambassador to Ireland and High Commissioner of SVG to the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland, His Excellency Senior Lewis, and Consul General to SVG to the Northern Ireland, Dr. Christopher Stange. Ambassador Lewis made a plenary statement on behalf of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and laid a flower at the memorial of the unknown civilian in Dublin Castle Gardens in remembrance of all those who have died through the use of explosives.